This is Laura DeFranco, holistic physical therapist and owner of Brave Healer Productions. I'm excited to bring you my new holistic healing series where you're going to learn from the experts what it means to live fiercely alive, mind, body, and soul. I invite you now to take a breath, relax, and feel the vibe of the words my guest has to share with you today. Welcome, everybody. This is such a special episode I'm bringing you guys today. I am interviewing the authors of a new book called Find Your Voice, Save Your Life. It's a project led by Nora Leeder of cravemorelife.com. And I seriously cannot wait to introduce you to these amazing women. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
So I have Miss Lulu Trevena, founder of Live Life with Wonder. She's an award-winning author, artist, and quantum healing practitioner who's passionate about shifting the societal narrative about women and age. Her transformational programs help you live with the confidence to do anything at any age of life. And you guys are going to be hooked up with all of their websites and places of contact down in those show notes. So don't forget to look there later. I have Nora Leeder with me. Her teaching career was spent working with students who struggled with learning. She was an administrator for over 18 years. Since retiring, she continues to work on projects with the school board as a faculty advisor with Nipissing University. Oh my gosh, did I get that right? Oh, good. Okay. Her passions are her grandchildren, baking, and photography. You can find Nora on LinkedIn. I also have Pam Bohlken with me. She is a Reiki master, vibrational sound therapy practitioner, and rapid transformational therapy practitioner using hypnosis. And she performs sound meditations. She's helping her clients release stress in their bodies to promote healing in body, mind, and soul. Pam loves spending time with her grandchildren, gardening, and sewing. And lastly, Susan Gaertner is the CEO and founder of When a Woman Starts Over, an international consulting firm that specializes in women's rights and gender equity. I'm messing up your words, Susan. Sorry about that. Susan is an author and speaker with more than 20 years experience as a communication strategist and gender equality activist. Every time I write my own bio for others now, I think about the tongue twister words. You know, you can either really torture us hosts or not. Thank you for those beautiful bios, ladies and viewers. There's so much to learn in each of these women's worlds. We're going to tell you how to connect with them down in the show notes. So I'm starting with Lulu. And Lulu, I want to know, what did it mean for you to find your voice? Talk to us a little bit about this chapter that you wrote.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And lovely to be here with you, wise, beautiful women. This book is such a gift to the world when you hear the stories. So in my story, I go back to something that happened very foundational in my childhood. And you will know in your own journey, sometimes those woundings are kind of buried quite deep and glossed over by often even our families. So to write my story and to really tell how it was for me, because my story has become a family story and no one really knows how it affected me. So to tell my story and write it all out, it was a big journey again for me. I've done a lot of healing on it, but even writing it, it was a big journey to really see how far I've come and to offer hope to other women that, you know, no matter what has happened, as we unravel, we have such a place to find the gold in the unraveling. So I feel really honored to bring my story. There's lots of deep personal parts in my story. You'll as you read it, you'll think like, oh, do people want to know that? So yeah, I'm open and raw in my story, and I hope you can see yourself in it.
You know, there have been several authors who have talked to me about the writing of their story in this particular project and book and how it affected them. and they were a little bit surprised. And you all have done self-reflection. You all have been seekers on the healing journey. You've done this work, and many of you have done it for a lifetime. And it was just interesting to me, the comments I was getting about, oh, I don't know what it was this time, sitting down to write this story. It was different. It felt like, you know, that deeper layer. So were you surprised, Lulu, or would you kind of expect that when you go into your writing process?
I expect the writing process to also take me on another layer of the onion, you know, like the peeling back. Yeah, when I finished it, it was like, wow, this is in print, you know, like that's it. It's kind of, it will last beyond me even, because being in a book is very, you know, there's no time to it. It's just there for however long the book's out there. So, yeah, I actually haven't shared it with anyone except, you know, the women in the group, which once again, I'm feeling like I'm a bit tender around it. So just holding it until the rest of the world has it as well.
And you've done a lot of writing. So show us the books that you brought for show and tell today. Tell us a little bit about what you've done.
So my first book is a book of poetic prose and high-end art. It's called Soul Blessings. I won a Silver Nautilus Award for that. I feel very proud of it, but I also know for many of us, we hold on to our dreams for a long time and we don't do them. This was one of those. I wanted to write a book from a young age, and I published this at 55. So it took me a year to publish, but it took me 55 years to get to the publishing.
I love that part of your story, because I hope that those of you who are listening will just be like, oh, okay, there's time for me yet to do these big things, right? It's a gorgeous book.
That's why I talk about women and age, you know, like it's important for us to just really harness our dreams, you know, if not now, you know, we need to take up our dreams right now. The second book is the one with some other beautiful women, and with you, Laura, in The Ultimate Guide to Self-Healing, became an international Amazon bestseller. And that also is a beautiful book in the way that women share their stories, but they're also sharing some tool for the reader that they can use exactly when they start reading the book. And they have these 25 tools to use in their life. So it's a series of books. It's going into the fourth book now. So I'm in book 3, but there's 4 and 5 coming. So that's a really exciting project to be part of. And writing is part of my creative expression. So I love to share my words, but also move other people through the words that I share. And, you know, we connect in our poeticness of words, Laura, which is, you know, you string a few words together and somehow it emotes something in someone else. And isn't that just a true joy to bring to other people? So
it is. It's magical. Thank you, Lulu. And I'll say a quick thank you to all of you. Thank you for saying yes to this project, and thank you for stepping up and being brave about sharing those brave words. You all did that so beautifully, and I'm so honored to be in your presence and be able to read. I feel like sometimes I get to be the fly on the wall of this secret conversation as I'm reading your stories. And they're so, oh man, they're just all so amazing. And, you know, this book comes out on February 2nd. For those of you watching this interview before February 2nd, it's coming. I'll talk to you a little bit later about the details of that. Nora, would you please share a little bit about what it meant for you to find your voice and about this chapter that you wrote?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me today. And I think one of the greatest things of this whole experience has been getting to read the stories of all these wonderful ladies who I thought that it was hard for me to find words. And I think I realize now, like, we all probably struggled with that a little bit to find the right words. I came into this project a little bit kicking and screaming, I have to admit. Diana is a wonderful convincer. I knew I had a story. I just wasn't sure what my story was, and I wasn't sure how to present it. So just the background was that 10 years ago now, my youngest child committed a very terrible crime in a very small town. And there was no place to hide because everybody knew us. But the worst feeling was being alone and feeling that nobody else could understand what I was going through. Nobody else had my story. And so it was a very long road. Of course, my husband and I traveled it together. Thank goodness. We probably grew stronger through all of this, which it can do one of two things. It can push you apart or it can bring you together. And I think that it certainly brought us closer together. But I think for me, until Diana and I talked a lot, I didn't realize that all I did was put one foot forward. That was our line. Just the next day, 1 foot forward. We were surviving. And when I sat down to write this book, I suddenly realized that we were doing a lot of things to put the pieces back together. I talk in the story about my shattered heart beat stronger, because honestly, when this happened, I felt the moment when my heart shattered and life would never be the same. And writing this book for me helped me to realize all the wonderful steps we took towards healing, and finally being able to speak up and say things that were bothering me or addressing things, but at least knowing that I had to speak up. And I think when the gentleman said to me one day, "You are a victim too," I was like, wow, because I was carrying all the shame. It was like I had committed the crime. I've often said one of the things that was hard for me was that when our children do well, people say, "You must be so proud. Like, you must be so proud of him." And you're like, "I am." But when your child messes up, we own that a little bit. And people would say, "No, you don't. No, you don't." But how can you take all the pride for something that goes well, but not accept that there was something there when your child messes up? And so for me, once I kind of started looking at myself as a victim, it wasn't because I wanted the pity. It was because I had to find out how to rebuild my life and find out that this happened to me. I didn't do this. And so this writing of this chapter, I'm not a journaler. I've watched many shows and thought, I should journal. This would help me. That wasn't me. So this for me was my first attempt at putting everything down and really thinking about what had happened in our lives and how we took the next step forward and how we became stronger through all of that.
And you so beautifully shared, so beautifully and authentically shared this. And I was writing the journey with you as I read that chapter. Hits the heartbone pretty fast, especially if you're a parent. And I marveled through your chapter seriously at how you were able to talk about it and not only just tell us all the horrible things that happened, but you offered your awareness throughout the chapter. And that's what I think helps people. And it's why storytelling and why writing and why books change people's lives, is the awareness that we're offering there. So thank you, first of all, for being so brave. And I know that all of the women are honored that you chose this project to be that taking that crack at that for the first time and really expressing in that way. So brave chapter. And with all of the things that we've seen in the media and all of the different stories we all hear and we know about, when do you ever get to hear that story? I don't think I have ever. And so I appreciated it.
And I think for us, the media was our biggest enemy because we couldn't run. And so we're 10 years past that event. And because if this had happened 25 years ago, people would have to go to a library, they'd have to go through the archives, they'd have to find it somewhere. But what happens for us is on a regular basis, this story hits the newspapers again, it hits social media. There isn't a 3-month block that somebody on social media doesn't think that they need to recirculate this story again. And what they sometimes don't realize is that my other children were victims too, and my husband and myself. And so when they post that story, it does hurt my son that committed the crime, but it hurts us far more. I know, like, I have one son who's a banker in a local town, and, all these customers come in and they've seen all this on social media. They have to deal with that. So media has really been our enemy through this. And yet in so many ways, it could have been our friend. It doesn't, the story will never go away. And that's the hard part for our family.
Yes, no doubt. And thank you again. Just want to say one more thank you for doing what you did so beautifully in your writing, being able to take us on that journey in a really actually very positive way, which would be hard to do with that topic. So,
and sometimes I wonder if it is. I found myself last night writing a thank you note to the people, my coworkers, because in my chapter, I talk about people who wanted to get me fired at work and those kinds of things. And so I never want those people who stood by me and came in my office and closed the door and said, if you want to scream, scream, because you can. And so I hope that it came across that there were so many people who were behind us. It was just those negative things that kept gnawing away at me and helping me to lose who I was as a person. So,
yes, thank you. All right, Pam, I'm going to move to you with the same question. And it's, just tell us what it meant for you. And don't you guys love the way that each of us is going to have a very unique take on this? And this is going to help a lot of people to understand, because people are in all kinds of different experiences and places with even just starting to explore what finding your voice means, right? So what did it mean for you, Pam? Tell us about your chapter.
Well, my chapter, just like the others, is totally different, on a different trend. I am talking about how your body responds to you not speaking your voice. I kind of look back to my childhood, which I really had not seen where it all began when I started to not use my voice. And so just looking back at that and just looking at, where that self-doubt starts creeping in and how that turned into health issues for me. Because I ended up with tuberculosis as a child. And then, as I got older, then, you got the uterine fibroids, and then I had colon cancer, and then I had multiple myeloma, which is another cancer. And I've spent my whole life not really speaking my voice and putting this in words. And like Lulu said, it's out there in a book now forever. So, I don't know. It's a big step.
Well, I'm just sitting here going, and here you are, Pam. So you've survived all of the things we just talked about, and you are on a podcast, girl. So so all of you haven't just written your words. That's one level of this. And actually published words is a whole other level, because there's words in a journal that might be some level, right? And then there's published words, and then you're at the microphone, so to speak, and you're here on a podcast and putting the vibration of your voice to the words and sharing them with that. It's all kinds of levels. So good for you.
Yeah. And I never really got into the journaling, even though when I was a teenager, I had my diary, which my mom ended up finding and reading. And I just ended up ripping up my diary and burning it. And I just I'm not putting anything else in writing ever again, and then here I am.
I want to just mention one other thing that resonates with me as you're talking, and it's come up in a couple of the other interviews, but the body connection. And there is a very important thing here that I want people to understand, is that if you've lived a lifetime of shoving the voice down, keeping it quiet, or not expressing it fully as your full-on self, this is directly related to the physiology that's going to occur inside of you. And these sorts of illnesses and diseases and problems can occur. And we're going to get into, in just a minute, I'm going to ask all of you, why this particular journey of finding your voice is important. And that would be my number one answer. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Susan, how about you? Talk to me a little bit about this. Tell us about your chapter and finding your voice.
Okay, thanks, Laura. And it's just great to be with all these amazing women. Their chapters are amazing, but it was really fun to hear you discuss them. You know, I had just read them up to this point. So my chapter is, it's a promotion, not a raise. And on the surface, it's a salary negotiation. And I haven't met a single woman who hasn't essentially shared my story. And like I said, it's a salary negotiation, and I stood up for myself essentially at a professional level and found my value and in the salary negotiation. And for any woman, a salary negotiation is a double-edged sword. And I get into that in my chapter in terms of the fact that there's risks in the salary negotiation. In my case, I stood up for myself. I stood up for what my value was and ended up losing this job. On the other side of it, had I accepted this salary proposal, I would have continued down a pathway of essentially watching my net worth decrease, essentially watching my debt increase, because women can't afford the salaries that we've started out with, and we live a lifetime on these lower salaries. So essentially, in this chapter, I describe how I stood up for myself, the consequences of that. It was a choice. Actually, I didn't know I would end up losing the job, but that is what happened. And so that's the surface of it. It goes deeper, though. Because at the end, Laura, as you know, when I lost my job, I turned around and started my own business, When a Woman Starts Over. So that was one of the results.
Yes. Okay, so this gets me into the importance of this journey. So question for all of you. I want to go around and really talk about this, but so I'm going to stick with you, Susan, here for a minute. For many different reasons, this particular journey is so important, I think, so important, but that reason it's so important differs for all of you. And so another way to put this is, you know, if I don't do this, if I don't find and heal and express my voice more and better, then that would have some consequence for me, right? And I want the viewers to understand what that is and the importance of this. So for you, Susan, why is this so important, this particular journey?
Because of my sisters. And by my sisters, I mean my global sisters. And this is just not an individual issue for me. This isn't just me. As I said, I can speak to every single woman has experienced the same situation. And in this journey, actually, I found myself realizing that we hear this phrase, women smash the glass ceiling, or when Kamala Harris became vice president candidate, everybody celebrated. She smashed the glass ceiling. We feel the glass shatter. And in my mind, it was offensive. It was horrible, because I thought to myself, why should a woman have to smash her head up against the glass ceiling? Get rid of the glass ceiling. So in this journey of writing, I found myself exploring these concepts and this language and these things that we just accept as a society. And there has to just be a fundamental change. Sure, women we can express our voices, but behind us, we need the laws, we need regulations, we need policies, we need society's attitudes and mindsets to ultimately be changed. So that's what happened with me during this journey.
Any of you have a comment for Susan there? I can feel the comments. Anyone want to add their 2 cents about that one? It's such a powerful topic. No, you guys are going to keep quiet on
the sisterhood. Let's the sisterhood keep going.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so Pam, how about you? So what's important about this piece of this healing journey?
Okay, for me, it is to help people to see that they have a voice when they are seeing their doctors, because the doctors don't look at nutrition, for one thing. So you have to kind of step up for yourself and and take care of your own nutritional needs, or find somebody that can help you with that a traditional doctor isn't going to have. And then also to know that just because a doctor recommends a certain medication or a certain test, it doesn't mean you have to do it. I mean, you have to go with your gut feeling, do your research if you need to, but do what feels right for you. And, and you do have that power. The doctors might try and talk you out of it, but, even when you're doing better than somebody else, a lot of other people have gone through the same tests and everything that you've gone through, and you're getting better results. They don't ask you how or what are you doing different. It's, they've got their set path that they want you to take because that's what everybody else has done. But I think, if you're following your own gut and you just know that you can say, no, I don't want to do that one, I'm not doing that, you have that power.
I resonate with this particular topic in terms of voice very, very much. That's another book title, is Find Your Voice in the Doctor's Office. Oh my God, the amount of women, and of course, I spent a lot of years with a lot of clients in physical therapy, and the very, very common report was of this problem, and just feeling so small and so silenced in that particular setting. Because why? Because we grew up thinking that the doctors are God, or we have no say in our own, there was no co-creating the treatment plan there. It was just sit quietly while you're told what to do. Sound familiar, anyone? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. I had listened to a podcast just like last week or the week before with another woman was talking about herself standing up to the medical field. And she said she went home feeling like such a rebel. And it's like, oh yeah, that just resonated with me.
Well, and that gets me back to what Susan was saying. Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as I said, not a single woman I've ever spoken with hasn't dealt with my situation on the salary negotiation. Yeah. There's not a single woman I've ever spoken with who hasn't had that exact experience that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And all the statistics are done on men.
Yes.
The health statistics are not on women or women's age or, Yeah. So, yeah, it's time for big change.
And that one infuriates me, like Susan was talking about hers, is like, that shouldn't even be a thing. No. There's right. Oh, goodness. Yeah. That's why these conversations
not
are
in 2021, right. Then you have to say we're in 2021 still talking about this. So.
Yeah. And it may be a little bit of stretch with this, but it was the same when I was seeking help. And I went to find some help from someone. And that was a big step for me because that wasn't my comfort zone. And the first one didn't work. And it was so hard for me to walk away and phone up and say it just didn't work. And then the second one didn't work. But we have that right that if you're seeking help and this isn't working for you, you have to keep going until you get what works for you. And there is somebody out there that works. It's just, I think I was under the mindset at first that, well, I guess I need to accept what this person is saying and doing because this is who they assigned me. And that's not the reality. So,
yeah.
Nora, let's stick with you there and add on, why else has this been important for you, this particular journey of finding your voice?
Well, I think because nobody has my story, but everybody that has kids can relate to stories like that. And so my hope was that I would help someone else through this. And I didn't realize how much it was helping me because I finally realized that even now, there are times when I will not speak my voice. And so I think the process of writing this chapter in this book is going to help me grow. I talk about, 3 steps forward, 1 step back, but you still keep moving forward. And I think that's what this chapter helped me do. It formalized thoughts for me about, I think if somebody had asked me 2 days before this event happened in 2010, what if I would say I would have crumbled? I would crumble. There were rumors out there that I had tried to commit suicide. I probably would have thought I would have done that. And what I did was the exact opposite. And I built up from that and made myself a stronger person. And so writing this chapter was kind of like affirmation for me that even though we think it's the darkest of times, we can come out stronger on the other side of it. And I think so many people in this book, I felt the same sense of, I never thought I would survive this, but look at me now. So.
Yes, I love that. Yes, with the exclamation points onto that. Lulu, same for you here. Why is this so important?
So my chapter talked about authority and also about humiliation, especially humiliation in front of your peers, especially at a young age. The effect that has, and that still happens in our peers today. Like, people can put us in our place in front of others, and it has such an impact. And I really want to encourage women that their voice, and specifically women, their voice is so important. Every single voice has something different to add to the whole, that we need to all harness that power. And as you know, becoming an author and a speaker, I know there will be people that will not like me. There will be people that will say things, and keep saying them no matter what. In your integrity and your truth and your love and compassion, still speak it out no matter what.
Oh my gosh, yes. I completely felt the little girl in your chapter. It was very difficult not to. And I was about to say, I'll say it, I love the topic of humiliation. I don't love it, but I love it, meaning I think we've all experienced that horrible, horrible feeling inside. And if there had been somebody next to me in those moments encouraging my voice, that would have been a life game changer. And so I love having the conversations now, even though that topic is painful, because it may help somebody realize when they're in it in the moment, maybe they're the helper for that other little girl, or they're the helper for their fellow woman, or whatever it is, right? This topic is very intense and a good one.
And I think that's what led me to do the work with, small gatherings of women, circles that I've done for 20 years. When other women sit in circle and listen to another woman's story, there's some part of it that resonates, and it gives them their own permission, and it gives them their own avenue to, I wonder how I can unravel this. So, I actually come from a sisterhood. I have 5 sisters. And so I've also created sisterhood around the world, because I think that's what's needed, our voice and a collective sisterhood, boosting each other up, not cutting each other down. It's time to stop that completely. We need to be boosting and listening really clearly with our heart.
No doubt. Susan, you had something.
So I'm just always so grateful when someone takes that risk and writes something that either we're all thinking or experiencing, just too afraid because, just too afraid to write. And I'm always so blown away when someone does it, and so grateful. And you just feel the dam open up, and then it might be on LinkedIn, or it might just be on a social media, just the talking back and forth, and the dam opens up, and you just see the flood of other people agreeing, or like, wow, the relief that I can actually express that too. So yes. I do appreciate when someone takes that risk and says something like that and writes. Yeah.
We talked about, the permission thing in a couple of the other interviews, and it was a strong theme and topic. And this is what happens. And this is so why it's important. And, being in a world of healers, and really in my own family too, specifically a psychologist in the family, and it happens to be my sister, and we would have these conversations about shame. And I remember one conversation, she just said, as soon as you call shame out, it dissolves. Just as the problem is getting to the point where you're courageous enough to call it out, to name it, to say it out loud, to write it out loud, right? And that's what you're talking about there. So being the trailblazer of that is a whole nother thing. And when we're encouraging each other, though, yes, like that's what we need to do. Just grab each other by the hand, by the waist and say, let's do this. We can do this, So ladies, you have all done that. Thank you.
Sorry. And when we call those parts back to ourselves, it's literally like we can feel we then take up our own space in our body, so it's such a somatic thing that, we can often we're walking around as heads thinking a lot, but when we're really in our body, because we've called back all the shame, the betrayal, the whatever, wow, that's a powerful place to be in the world, in your body, truly in your body.
Yes.
I kind of put my teacher hat on when I was reading your chapter, because I thought about words I've heard so many teachers use that would have made children feel how you felt. And I know that was one of my big missions when I was an administrator, was working with people about how they talk to the children. Because for some children, it rolls off like water off a duck. And for others, they ingest that water and it becomes a part of who they feel they are. And our words as teachers are very powerful. And I felt like so many teachers need to read this chapter and just think about how they're talking to children in their classrooms, because it shapes who those people are going to be in the future. So
thank you.
So
you know what, Nora, though, just not even as a teacher, as a parent too, it affects me. You know what I mean? How I'm speaking. So
I know. Yeah.
I agree. I agree with you with the words.
Yes. Anyone in a position of being a model, a role model for any, really. Yes. Thank you, ladies. I want to spend our last few minutes thinking about our viewers and listeners today and what we might offer them in terms of, there are going to be women listening who are really struggling and they're nodding their heads, having the whiplash like we all are today. But they're still struggling. And for me, I know an easier entry point was journaling. I could begin to write my voice out loud on that paper and move the energy and move things out of me. And nobody was going to read it in the beginning, right? It wasn't like today where I will stand at a microphone and talk about that. And that was part of my chapter. But everybody needs an easier, more safe place to kind of enter the journey. So Pam, I want to start with you on this one. What would you offer the people who are watching about that?
Well, let's see. I would say, like, for the people that I work with, especially with hypnosis, we're going back into those old beliefs and trying to figure out where you came up with these beliefs that are causing your issues in your life today. So even just taking time to think back to your childhood, like what, like when I first started this chapter too, I hadn't really thought about how my relationship with my best friend had affected my life now. And just looking at that a little bit closer, let's see, just trusting yourself, finding a good friend that you can just chat with back and forth. I find myself, I do really well in a one-on-one type of conversation. You get me in a group and I'm just like I'm still holding way back and I'm just the observer. But for me, it just really helps to be in a one-on-one situation. Just find somebody you can trust and just start talking. If you're not a writer, just start getting it out there to somebody.
It's so important to reach out. Yes, so important. A lot of that deep pain, we don't do that alone. Of course, we can try to do that alone, but if we can have the courage to reach out to even just a good friend, and even just with words that go something like, I'm really struggling with something right now. And that's all that needs to happen. It doesn't have to be, the whole story or this or that, but just starting that way, right? So if you're listening to all of the beautiful women here today who are talking about expressing their voices, and they've written these chapters and we're publishing this book, and you're like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. What you can do is you can reach out to somebody and you can just let another human being that you trust know that you're struggling, right? It's a good thing. Nora, how about you? What would you offer to someone listening who's still struggling with this?
I think it's to be kind to yourself, first of all. In my chapter, I talk about the fact that there were some negative things happening. And in one of my classes, we had to create a wheel. And in that wheel, we had to write down all the things that we were. So we created spokes, but we weren't allowed to write down the reason why we were at this group, which was that my son was a sexual predator. And so I'm a mother, I'm an aunt, I'm all these things. And when I got to when they said, now you can write it, there was a tiny piece left, a tiny piece. And sometimes we need to be reminded that that thing that is nagging away at us is a tiny piece, and focus on all those other wonderful things. And there's something about me, maybe none of you ladies can relate, but if somebody says, wow, you did great, your chapter was amazing, I have a hard time accepting that. But if somebody said, wow, like, are you sure you should wear that red dress today? I focus on that forever. Like, why? What's wrong with my red dress? Like, what, So I think, my advice in the chapter is talk to yourself the way you talk to your friend. What would you say to your friend? And be kind to yourself, because everybody has so many wonderful things about them, but there may be that one thing that's tugging away and pulling you down. So focus on all those good things, and that will give you the courage to speak up about those other things.
I love that, Nora. Thank you. Massive self-compassion, people. Practicing it every day.
I need to practice it a little more. It's a journey.
We all do. Lulu, how about you? What would you offer to somebody struggling right now?
I think it's really important to be witnessed, because all our pain happened when we were with someone. So when we unravel pain, it needs to be witnessed. I definitely recommend finding a circle or something to have someone that has, no judgment, that you could bring anything forward with, and there is no judgment at all. And it may take a while to find that. I'm also a big believer in both the somatic work and the creative work. Sometimes we don't need to talk about all our crap. We actually could create something and put all of that into something. And I think that's a good release. We talk a lot in society about, mental health issues. Sometimes it's at an emotional level. It's not, we want to think the mind controls everything, but the emotions, how can we heal emotionally? By accepting all the emotions and not trying to squash them any further. So a really good support group.
Love that, Lulu. Thank you. And Susan, how about you? Oh, unmute yourself, girl.
Sorry. First, I would actually want to put a warning out to younger women. Do pay attention to your salary. Do pay attention to your value and your worth. Pay attention to that from the get-go. But on a larger level, I think people are struggling with this. They have to recognize this is a patriarchal society still in 2021. It's something we have to change. It's something we're living with right now. So kind of recognize we're in that right now. It's something we have to break out of and change. But that's largely responsible for a lot of the situation that you find yourself in when you're 59, 60 years old, fighting for the type of salary that you deserve. So,
thank you. Susan, where can people come find more out about you?
My website, www.whenawomanstartsover.com, or follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or Instagram.
Awesome. We're going to have you hooked up in those show notes, you guys, down below. How about you, Nora?
I'm on LinkedIn, just under Nora Leeder. And I do have a Facebook page, Nora Jacqueline, but I don't tell a lot of private stuff there, but I'd be happy to have a chat through Messenger.
Thank you. Lulu, how about you?
You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, all under my name. And also my business name is Live Life with Wonder. And important that you have the with, because there's another one with a different word there. So livelifewithwonder.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Lulu. And how about you, Pam?
All right. I have a website as pambohlken.com, and I'm on LinkedIn And on Facebook, I have a Healing in Progress Body, Mind, and Soul page. And then I have a private group that is called Pam Bohlken Healing in Progress Community.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Ladies, you're all so freaking amazing. Seriously. Thank you so much for being in this book project. Thank you for what you're doing in the world to make a difference. And thanks for being here today to share it with everybody.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks for
Thank you,
having us.
Laura.
Thank
So, viewers, this amazing book is going to be released on February 2nd, 2021. Please join us on my Facebook page, Brave Badass Healers, at 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time on the 2nd for a little live stream launch party. We're going to have some giveaways and some other fun things. You can watch the launch. I'm going to have all of the authors on, and we're going to talk more about finding your voice and saving your life. And if you're listening after February 2nd, well, of course, then the book is available, and that'll be linked up down below for you also, so you can find your copy. And lastly, y'all, I love to end these shows with a question. I love the big questions. Move you out into the world in a form of possibility kind of energy. And that's what this book did for me. But here goes. What if there's something you haven't learned yet about finding your voice and healing it that could change everything, right? Time to be brave. See you next time. Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Love what you heard today. Don't forget to drop down and hit that subscribe button, you guys, and then join me over at bravehealer.com for just a little bit more healing badassery. Have a great one.